Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's hot, isn't it, right? I feel like I don't know if there is a reason of the tension and the controversies that we're raising this afternoon, but I have a, sorry. Oh, yeah. So my contribution this afternoon would be with that sentence, which is could be interpreted provocatively, which is not my intention, but I'll try to build on that controversy about communities. Because we've heard about collaborative economy, we've heard about communities, and what I particularly noticed during the previous presentations is the huge diversity of what we're talking about. And probably if we build on that, we can assume that the term community itself is heterogeneous, and there are questions that can be asked about the relationships between the communities and the individual. I think it's the good time to start asking that question, because we are at the moment when there has been a lot that has been done. A lot of communities have acted and proved success, and also others have failed in their attempt to define new ways of working and acting. And at the same time, there is still a lot to be done. So we are at a time where scale is one of the questions that is linked to sharing economy, collaborative economy, whatever the word and the diversity of the words that we're using. The question about scale, which are how can we scale, first, and second, what happens if we scale? What consequences if communities, and if we enter this age of communities that we are pleading? Sorry. Okay, so first, I'll split my talk in the two parts of the controversies, right? And giving some examples of the empowerment power of communities. And after, I'll raise a series of questions to fuel the second part of the controversy. So communities demonstrate every day their power to build a new world. They are transforming cities, companies, etc. And we've heard a lot of people from various fields using that term of community. Policymakers, entrepreneurs, activists, artists, etc. People that normally, frankly, disagree. They all agree on that term of community. And of course, we can share with them that basic assumption that who can be against the idea of community, and normally it's connoted very positively. The term has been using so much recently that I dedicated some time with some of the colleagues to work on open business models, and that's a research that we are currently leading about open business models, how are they working, how to foster them, and it's through this research that we revealed this controversy about communities and their domination about and the domination aspect on individuals. Through this research, we had the opportunity to meet and to interact with thinkers, entrepreneurs, and they all coined the term community as a key term for their endeavors and for the subjects that they're tackling. But they framed it very differently. Some of them revealed or identified the community as a tool to develop their business model. Other as empowering tool, like, let's say, more social impact. And let's reveal some examples about communities. And there are examples that are slightly different than from the others that were presented this morning and at the beginning of the afternoon. OpenStreetMap, which is a community of people that are every day updating maps. And this community of people is performing better than the standard corporations in that field. So they prove, in a sense, that a community is more efficient than a standard corporations. Another interesting communities is, and Protea, this marine drone that has been designed by a team of researchers and engineers that tackles the problem of pollution of the oceans. And that very blunt problem of pollution of the oceans has not been tackled by publicly funded researchers, but by a group of people that decided to commit on that idea. And a last one, which is even probably more, let's say, radical in the way it could transform industries, is open source vehicle. This platform of a car that you can purchase and assemble yourself, and after you can be part of the community and, like in any other open source project, decide to modify and to bring improvement to that initial platform. So what do these examples tell us? They tell us first that a lot has been done and communities are gaining more and more impact, whatever they target. But they also tell us that there is question about how to scale those initiatives and what would be the consequences if they scale. So now I'll move to, let's say, the darker side of the controversy, and in what way communities or a communities-driven world would not be such a good news for individuals. And before that, I need to be clear. I have no particular answer on that, and I'm objective here is more to break the question down across a series of questions rather than to supply a definitive answer. So the first question, which has already been discussed, and I will not be very long on that, is the question of the equilibrium between the platforms and the individuals. Nearly all communities are either supported or organized through platforms, whether they are physical or digital. And of course, the question associated to that is the value sharing, because between the people that contribute to the platform and the platform itself. And I quote here Michelle Bowens, which we interviewed during that research, which frames quite precisely the question that is now addressed by the people. This question of value sharing is also observable in another context, the context of companies, corporations, let's say the historical actors that use and mobilize communities in their value chain. What's the upside for the people that are contributing for these corporations' value chain? Is the value shared equitably? What are the limits of such collaborations between crowds, communities, and corporations? The question is both about the value sharing, but it's also about the independence of the people that are committing day after day to these platforms. Will it be possible to move from one platform to another? Will it be possible to get its autonomy back? Other question, and it's the second one associated, is that, and it's been quite precisely highlighted in the previous presentation about digital labor, the very important question is, are these people forced in a way to group into communities, or do they decide to act as a community? And probably that's a question that has no final answer, but it's a question that we need to have in mind when analyzing and designing those platforms and collaborations between communities and other bodies. Another question that is relatively less or fewly discussed is the question about the goals. We pretend like if every community had very respectable and that the goals were not likely to be criticized or debated. And probably that the questions of the goals assigned to a community is a question that is also to place on the debate. If we are in an age of communities, communities will compete and probably compete between each other and also with other existing bodies in this society. They will be competing on resources. They will be competing on attention. And how will this competition or rivalry will be solved and arbitrated. We can criticize, and it is criticized, there are criticized markets and hierarchies, but they proved also to be as adequate mechanisms to arbitrate rivalry in society in a relative peaceful way. So the question is, how rivalry be arbitrated in a world governed by communities? So don't get me wrong, I totally agree with that sentence. And we have everyday examples of what communities perform and how they are performing better and better every day. But the 5 questions I raised are open questions that probably we could keep in mind when analyzing that topic. They are related to the leadership of these communities. They are related to the relationships between the communities and the other external bodies. They are also linked to the size and scope of these communities. If we keep on being controversial, we could say that there could be 4 controversial phases of communities: mystic, local, entrepreneurial, and stateless. And of course, I'm not good at predictions, and I will not risk today to predict something about that. But what I'm sure of is that we need to discuss those various phases of community. And if you want to discuss that, tomorrow we are having a time machine experience. We'll move to the year 2025 with 4 community leaders that were not announced on the program, but I can announce them now. And we'll discuss those topics. It's at 11:30 at the boat. Thank you.